Going to start the Finance Committee for March 8th. Committee members, myself, Christine Ressler, Kim Campworth, and Larry Canning are here. And we have Evelyn and Mr. Thompson.
Yeah.
What's your first name again?
Dale.
Dale Thompson.
Dan.
Sorry.
Is it Dan or Dale?
D-A-L-E.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's
Dale.
Dale. Okay.
My hearing is bad. Please clean the filter.
Yeah,
Good job.
not mine.
You can do screen that you go through?
Yeah, just
It's National Pancake Day today.
Today is?
Yes.
All right.
Alrighty. Do we have any comments from the public? Anybody?
That would be you, Dale. No?
No? Okay then.
comments.
Oh, and Evelyn. Sorry.
Okay.
No
Oh,
comments?
business.
No.
Okay, we'll move on to new business for March with the March bills. Questions?
No questions from me. I reviewed them. Everything looks
I just had one question on the Rosencrantz bill. On page 84.
Okay. Okay.
Is that, what is
Yeah,
that?
this is our special ed. We're using grant dollars for some of the evaluations that are required, some unique specialized evaluations for our special needs students. They outsource some of those evaluations in
Okay.
particular cases. So that's what this bill would be for. I can give you more detail on that if I can follow up with an email on more detail if you
Okay,
want.
yeah, that
sure.
would be nice, thank you. That's
Any other
all I
ones?
had.
Oh, I'm good.
No? Okay. You had no over 5,000s. Any questions on the CDS?
nope. I'm good.
Okay, there. And right on through to the paper bid. I'm recommending Midland Paper for our spring paper bid. We received bids from these vendors. Midland, again, even though it was very close, they came in as our low bidder. They've been our
I have
paper
between
supplier
those two.
for a while, and that is who I would be recommending again to the committee. Anybody have any objections for that? Okay.
It's like that time of year again. It's like,
That time of
wow,
year
it's-
again, yeah. They're getting low on paper. They're starting to panic. When's our paper going to
I
get
just,
here?
it went by so fast. I feel like
Mhm.
that
And we want to
it went by so
Yeah.
fast that we're here again reviewing this bid.
Okay, so we're good with that. I have no other items.
You have
Or
other down
anything.
there? Did you have something? I was gonna ask you.
I don't have, no, I always put that on there just in case something comes up, but I have no other action items. sometimes at the time when we print these and finalize these on Friday, I may get something later in the day or even today that we add. If we, PTAB would be an
Sure.
example, but
Okay, well, I'd like to
Don't have
bring
any-
what I have to say to the committee. This $50 million that we can use now with no interest payment, right? And I think I mentioned it to you on just in passing on my way out last time. I'm not okay that there's no stipulations put on that, as far as the interest. Now, we have to do what we have to do with the project money, right? It's what's stipulated, okay, and there's rules and regulations with it, right?
correct.
But the way I understand it, Tom, and help me if I'm not getting it right, on the interest, there's no rules and stipulation. That money could go for what it's supposed to go for, or could be used for something else. It's at our discretion, correct?
Yeah, and that's something that we're going to get into at our committee of the whole meeting on April 5th is the
Okay.
structure of the bond and the options that we have in terms of that. One of the options is to take those dollars and utilize them as we see fit. In other words,
What dollars?
the dollars, let me clarify.
Yeah.
The dollars that we get back from the federal government, they're going to reimburse
Which is the
us
interest on it,
the
right?
interest up to 4.5% annually
Okay,
on the bond issue.
okay,
And again, depending on the structure of the bond and the length of the issue will determine exactly how much annually
Interest.
that's going to
Right.
be.
right,
And when we receive those reimbursements from the federal government,
right.
then, and we'll have it structured out ahead of time in terms of what we're going to do. But that's something that the board will discuss
Well, okay, Tom, so when you say what we're going to do with the interest money?
with the rebated monies for the bond issue from the federal government, right?
Because I believe that this is a good thing for our district. We don't have to put a referendum out there. We can structure these bonds over a long period of time, which will help out. But what I have problems with is getting that money reimbursed back to us, and then we're just kind of putting it into other projects, and it's not going for what it's supposed to. And then the taxpayers are not only on the hook for $50 million. You might as well add in another $20 million in interest, So I just
Well, when you say what it's supposed to, like you mentioned, it's up to the board to determine what that's supposed to be.
That's what I want to say. Do we take it to a situation where we'll vote on what exactly, if that money's coming in for interest, that's what it has to go for? Is that something that we can put to a vote? Evelyn, you might know. I mean, have you ever crossed that?
I'm trying to figure out your question because when you
My question
sell
is,
bonds,
simply put, the bonds to me are like a credit card. Okay, it's not free money. You're going to pay this back.
Wait.
So
Hold
with
on.
a credit card comes interest.
correct.
They're saying that we're getting interest that we don't have to pay because who is it? The federal government?
Not that we don't have to pay, we're going to be reimbursed for the interest from the bond issue.
So we don't have to pay it.
No,
No.
we
What
paid
I'm
up
saying.
front.
Well,
No, you
we're
have to pay it
paying
up
it
front and
with
get
our tax
reimbursed.
But we're
levy.
getting reimbursed. But so when we get reimbursed,
And that's the
no, because I don't think there's stipulations on that, Evelyn, that we have to pay it.
There has to be in the bond issue.
yeah. You're going
You
to
have
pay.
to say in the bond issue, I'm going to use it for ABC. You can't say, oh, I'm going to get that $4 million, I'm going to spend it on salaries.
That's what.
That would be a
okay.
violation.
Yes.
That's
Yes, the
what he's
bond
trying
issue
to
is
say.
going to be
You're gonna have to
for capital projects.
Right.
And you
And
need to
because the
name
what-
them. You need to,
Well, and those will be outlined just like we've done in the past with that. And again, we'll get into full detail on this at our committee of the whole meeting. I understand your point. What
You see
you're
where I'm coming
recommending
from?
is you're recommending the option of taking the reimbursement from the federal government of the cost of issuance for interest on the bonds and utilizing that to offset that back to the taxpayers. Now, that is an option that we can do. There's other options there that we
I
can
don't think
consider
that's
as
what
well.
he's saying.
No, that's not what I'm
He's saying
saying.
he doesn't want the interest money to be used for general operations.
Correct.
If there's interest money
Correct.
coming in
It needs
for
to go for
capital
interest.
projects, it should go for capital projects. No?
What
The
was
interest,
that?
we're gonna pay the
Pay
interest.
that interest, okay.
But when we get the money back, do you want that money just dumped into the general fund to pay for utilities and salaries? Or do you want it to go to another capital project? That's
Well,
the
something to be
decision you're gonna
decided.
have to make.
Well, and one of the things that, again.
Okay, so I'm sorry, then I was under the impression it was set up a different way. And this is from our discussions, and I don't know why I thought it was going to be a situation where, okay, the government we got our bonds, okay, and our government says, okay, here's your interest, here's your money for your interest payment, go pay it. And then there's no stipulation saying that you have to go do that, and then we take it and we use it for other projects or whatever to shore up our budget or whatever, and then all of a sudden we're like, how,
No, our levy that we file annually is going to include a bond and interest payment.
Mhm.
Okay? And
interest that-
the interest that we pay on these $50 million bonds
Mhm.
is going to be reimbursed back to the district.
Okay.
When we get those dollars back, then we have some
I thought
options.
it was structured differently. Okay, so that's where
Yeah, I apologize if I said something that
So
made
what
you
you're saying
believe
is
that.
you want when that money comes back to be put in that account, so the following year when we make a payment, we're using that money to make
Yes.
the payment.
Yes.
And not,
That's an option.
Yeah.
That's an
Yeah,
option.
yeah, and that's what I've stated. That is one option. Now, one of the things, and again, we'll get into full detail. Rob Grossi will be here to join us, and we'll talk about the different options that we have to structure bonds, and we're reviewing the numbers on the different scenarios right now as to what would be most advantageous for the district as well as for taxpayers. But something that we need to take a look at is if we utilize those dollars and put those into our fund reserves,
Mhm.
that may offset the need to go out and borrow for operating, which we have been doing every 4.5, 5 years.
Mhm.
So that could push that out.
Variety of scenarios.
Right, that's one scenario. And if we say, no, the board decides that we're gonna take these dollars that we get refunded from the federal government and we're going to utilize those to offset the interest costs for the taxpayers,
Mhm.
then that may cause us to consider going out for an operating fund issue on top of this. So this one issue may circumvent the need to do an operating one. We know in 2018, as it stands right now, we're going to be completely debt-free. So, with that being the case, is that what we want to have happen? Or we've got other scenarios that are available? And again, I don't want to get into too much detail tonight because we're going to have a full-blown committee, the whole meeting with
Sure,
everybody
and I'm
present.
sorry for jumping
No, that's
in, but
okay.
I
No,
just-
I understand where you're
Something
coming
just
from.
wasn't sitting right,
Yes.
and I didn't know if it was, I heard something different.
No, nothing has been determined with that yet. So, again, we'll review different options and then the board can vote on the option that they prefer.
I just have one question.
Sure.
Because I'm the ultimate pessimist. Money ultimately came from the feds. It's in the hands of the state.
It's in the hands of the state.
So how much does a
Well,
lack of
the-
a state budget impact
Well-
this even ever
Well,
coming our
here,
way?
the money.
The money?
The money is
The money?
not.
Right.
Yeah.
The state grants,
It's there, it's
nobody.
set aside.
I live in this world, Larry. It doesn't matter. They're not giving it out.
You have to go,
Yeah,
then what was the process for? What was the application? What was the voting for? What was the,
Yeah, I mean, I
I'm
feel.
just saying
See,
You're from
This is-
Missouri.
no, this is what's happening in
This
the
is-
park world.
this is-
Grants that have been awarded have not been handed out because the state doesn't have a budget. The money is there, it's been dedicated, it's in a separated fund, the check's not cut.
Here's the
Tom,
way I understand it.
Is it a
to
federal
clarify.
thing then?
It's a federal program.
Okay.
They have given Illinois $500 million set aside for this program.
Is that money still there? Do you-
Well, see, the money is not there. The money, in my understanding, the money is not there. once all these bonds are issued, the money then
Right.
becomes available.
Right.
And what the feds are going to do is they're going to pay the interest.
interest.
So there's
Right.
not 500 million
No.
sitting
No.
there is
But
the way
the
I
money-
understand
We
it.
have to
Ultimately,
generate
it's
it by
not
offering
coming-
the bonds, the 50
But the money
million.
isn't coming, the check to us is not coming from Washington.
No, it's
Coming
not
from
coming from
Springfield.
the, no,
That's the problem.
no,
It's
it's
the
not,
bond
Ev. It's
issue,
coming from the
Evelyn.
bond, the sale of the bonds. Whoever the purchasers are of the bonds. That's where the
So
check
the
is
money
gonna
that's
come
set
from.
aside is for the
It's
interest.
no different than any of our other bond issues. It's going to be the same process. It's just the interest now that is tacked onto that issue, we will be reimbursed from the feds. And they're going to track each one of those bond issues that the state of Illinois that is being doled out to make sure that we are spending those dollars within the parameters that we were given. And if for some reason, the 3 years go by and they offered us up to $50 million and we issued $50 million worth of bonds, but we only spent $30 million on capital projects, then there's penalties that kick in as far as that goes. So if Springfield's not sitting on that money, it's not like
And
we
they
have to
never
rely
will
on
be.
them to release it. No, they will not.
That's
So,
basically my question.
yeah, so right. I would be concerned as well that they didn't, play the shell game and already
So
use that
Rosie
500
will go
It's not that
ahead
they used it, they
and
just
he'll
won't.
do what he did for us with the last bond issue, correct?
Correct. Depending on how we want to structure
Right,
it.
depending on
Yes.
that, but okay.
Right.
So that's
And
where our
so,
money's
yeah,
coming from.
so those are the options that we'll discuss
Okay.
April 5th. And there's some advantages to different scenarios that we'll present. And we can talk through those, get all of our questions resolved. The other piece of it is the timing of when we want to do the bond issue, because the clock starts once you issue the bonds. You have 3 years.
18 months or so.
You have 18 months from the date of notification. So we were just notified a week and a half ago. The official notification came from the state. So we roughly have 18 months or 17 and a half months to do the bond issue. But then once you do the bond issue, now the 3-year clock on construction starts as well. So our logic is, well, we want to push that out at least 10, 12 months, because we're working with the architects and the engineers right now to do all the preliminary work. We have to do topographical surveys to see where retention and detention are going to go. And it was identified that there's potential 2 wetlands on 2 of our campuses that we have to address and see how they factor in. So there's a lot of different things that have to be reviewed and analyzed before architects can even start working on drawings. And so we want to get a jump on those, which we have, but we don't want to start that clock now if we can push that clock out,
And that clock
10,
starts
12
soon
months.
as you put the bond issue out.
Correct. So once the date of that issue takes place, then that'll start the 3-year construction clock. So in other words, when we start that construction clock, we want shovel in the ground, because now we have the architectural plans done. We've bid all this work out, and we've got the contractors lined up and ready to go the day that we start that 3-year clock.
And that 3 years is the completion?
That's 3 years
Everything to be completed or just started?
for completion.
For
Yeah,
completion.
which we don't see a problem with as long as we time this out correctly.
Okay.
Yeah, it's going to be a heavy
The
schedule,
Wetlands are
but
Bremen and Tinley, I would presume.
what's that?
Wetlands. Bremen and
Wetlands,
Tinley.
believe it or not, are Bremen and Oak Forest.
That's what, Oak Forest.
Tinley's not a wetland?
I was
It's a
gonna
marsh.
say,
Yeah, well, yes,
we're talking about taking the canoes out to the softball field.
Uh-huh.
and we don't. Yeah,
Go figure. Oak Forest dug a trench somewhere? That's a wetland.
well, yeah.
It is. I'm serious.
Right, I know it is, and it even could be dry, and it's just if the
You
soil
dug a trench,
tests
it's a
for so
wetland.
much fresh water, it can
It
be
isn't
wetland.
even that. We dug a trench from one road to the ditch, and that was considered a wetland
Wetland.
because we dug the trench
Mhm.
to take excess water.
So and there's ways to address it. It's just they have to come in and identify yes or no, and then we work from there. So,
Get the plants free from DNR. Get some kids to stick them in the ground. Gotta
right. No, it's pretty close to that, so. So anything else to discuss this evening? I thank you for your time. Sorry for the delay. We won't, we shouldn't encounter that
We
again.
caused the delay.
Yes, the first thing.
You shouldn't be apologizing.
We're
That's all right.
sorry, you were waiting
But-
so long.
Yeah.
Skeptical,
I'm
but
sorry.
we were only given a half an hour.
21 will adjourn the
I was
meeting.
like, no, no.